Okay, let's jump right into this explainer and uncover the software architecture that's basically powering today's advanced robotics. Seriously, whether we're talking about agile Silicon Valley startups building the next generation of autonomous delivery vehicles or those cutting-edge academic labs pushing the absolute boundaries of what machines can do, there's a common thread tying them all together. And we are going to unpack that thread today to see exactly how modern roboticists bring metal and circuits to life. So think about this for a second. Imagine you're building a car, but before you can even touch the chassis, you have to literally invent the wheel, formulate the rubber for the tires, and forge your own screws. Sounds completely exhausting, right? Well, you might be wondering, why don't robotics engineers start from scratch for every new project? Honestly, the immense complexity of writing motor controllers, sensor drivers, and communication protocols from the ground up every single time is just massively inefficient. Without some kind of standardized framework, developing even a really simple robot would take years instead of weeks. And that's exactly where our solution comes in, the ROS2 ecosystem. Now, ROS stands for Robot Operating System, though actually, scratch that. It's technically a specialized middleware framework. You can think of it as this absolutely crucial bridge connecting your raw, high-level code to the actual physical mechanics of the machine. It entirely streamlines robotic development through a really clever modular architecture. So instead of reinventing the wheel over and over, engineers just plug right into this ecosystem. They grab the standardized tools they need, and then they can focus purely on what makes their specific robot unique. To see how this all operates, let's look at part one, the computation graph. Because remember, this is a dynamic, modular ecosystem, not just one massive monolithic block of code. It's really fascinating how this works. The system is made up of these distinct nodes that form a dynamic communication network. You've got publisher nodes that basically broadcast information out there, and subscriber nodes that listen for that specific information over designated channels, which are called topics and services. Oh, and a discovery service helps them all find each other automatically behind the scenes. For example, a student can write a super simple Python talker node just to broadcast a basic "Hello World" message. Another node can subscribe to that exact topic and just listen. Suddenly, you have this living, breathing communication network where a camera node can talk directly to a motor node, zero tangled wires required. Moving right along to part two, core tools, we need to talk about URDF and DDS, because these are the foundational protocols that make this whole node party possible. First up is URDF, or the Universal Robot Description Format. This is just an incredibly powerful tool used for the physical modeling of a robot. Basically, it allows engineers to mathematically define a robot's physical characteristics. We're talking its links, its joints, its weight, its turning radius, all in software, way before a single piece of physical hardware is ever touched. You are literally building the robot's physical constraints in code, so the system knows exactly what kind of body it's going to be controlling. It's like a digital blueprint. Next, we have DDS, which stands for the Data Distribution Service. This is the underlying protocol that manages all that complex information exchange across the system. And it really brilliantly illustrates how DDS acts as the invisible glue inside ROS2. It handles the heavy lifting of network traffic. It's making sure that all those distinct nodes we just talked about can reliably and securely share information, whether they are running together on a single laptop or spread out across different machines on a local network. All right, let's dive into part three, from simulation to hardware. This is where we see how all this theory builds into real-world applications. A really perfect case study for this comes from articulated robotics. Just think about how incredibly fast and seamless this deployment journey actually is when you use this framework. Okay, step one, you do your URDF physical modeling on your computer. You build that digital twin. Step two, you simulate the environment and map a 2D LiDAR scan right there using a visualization tool called RVIS. You can literally see the virtual lasers mapping the digital room in real time. And then, step three, the grand finale, you deploy that exact same code directly onto a physical Raspberry Pi 4. Because of ROS2's modular nature, the code genuinely doesn't care if the LiDAR is virtual or real. You literally just swap the simulated sensor node out for the physical sensor node, and boom, the robot drives. It is such an incredibly powerful workflow. But let's be real, it is rarely that easy. Let's slow down for part four, troubleshooting system pitfalls, because code that works perfectly in a pristine virtual simulation very often hits a massive brick wall in the real world. You know how it goes. You might have a perfectly successful flowing connection, or you might get the dreaded Linux terminal output, nodes not discovered.
Which brings us to a massive pitfall in these systems, misconfiguring the robot's coordinate frame transforms. In the ecosystem, this is commonly known as TF2. Look, if your laser scanner thinks it's positioned 2 meters behind your robot's actual wheels simply because of a tiny math error in your transform tree, well, the nodes won't align, the data won't make any sense, and your physical robot will likely drive straight into a wall while throwing a dozen error messages at you.
And then, of course, there are the invisible enemies. As the saying goes, network latency can break a real-time control loop in RAWs too. The absolute crucial point here is the incredibly high stakes of network latency. Think about it. If a robot is balancing on 2 wheels, or an automated arm is catching a thrown object, it relies on a real-time control loop operating in milliseconds. If the Wi-Fi drops or the DDS protocol lags for even a fraction of a moment, that communication breaks. The physical robot misses its cue, and it fails its task completely. No do-overs. These exact kinds of challenges lead us directly into a broader conversation in Part 5, the open source security debate.
Now, the sources lay out the reality here very objectively. Standard open source distributions, which go by fun code names like Humble and Foxy, offer immense utility. Broad adoption across the globe drastically accelerates innovation. When a researcher in Tokyo solves a tricky navigation bug, a startup in Austin can just implement that fix the very next day. It's amazing. However, this open nature simultaneously introduces real, significant security implications. Utilizing publicly available, collaborative code in highly sensitive fields means vulnerabilities could potentially be exposed or exploited if they aren't rigorously secured by the end user.
By the way, if you want to dig a little deeper into the mechanics of those nodes, topics, and how to actually write the code to get your own differential drive robot moving, the sources highlight a fantastic supplementary resource. The book, Programming Robots with Ross, is highly recommended for any of you who want to take your learning a step further and get truly hands-on with the ecosystem. But as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought to ponder, especially based on that security debate we just touched on. Is open source software secure enough for medical robots? I mean, when we move from a fun little vacuum cleaning robot in your living room to a robotic arm performing precise life or death surgery in an operating theater, the stakes change entirely. Does the benefit of rapid modular innovation really outweigh the potential risks of using an open source framework in a highly sensitive, zero-fail environment? It's a wildly complex question, and it's one the entire robotics industry is actively wrestling with right now. Think about it.